today's segment of The Authors. Today we have a car crash survivor, father of 3, happily married man for 46 years, winner of over 50 awards for his publications, also known as Richard Bachman and John Swithin, Stephen King.
Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
So, how are you today?
Doing amazing as always.
All right, that's good. I hope you don't mind. We're just going to get straight into this interview.
Let's go ahead.
When and why did you start writing?
This is a question I get frequently because many think, why would this man take an interest in such a limited category? Most people don't really enjoy horror. It actually began in high school when I was just writing on the newspaper team. And
Interesting.
it was called The Village Vomit for our school, and I put in one of my stories that kind of had more gore and blood. It was just a rough draft. It wasn't anything really exciting. But it became very offensive because it got published, because I could get it in the newspaper without anyone else knowing, and I didn't get suspended, but I just ended up having to apologize to the whole community. They tried to get me to then write in the sports category, which I'm not really a sports kind of guy, and so I was just like, this isn't for me. So I just kept on the horror train and just kept going and just strayed away from the newspapers.
And greatly thank you for that too.
Oh, I'm thankful for it too.
So, next question. Who or what has influenced your writing?
This is another question that I get often. Some might find this a surprise, but Don Robertson is actually one of the guys that actually inspired me when I was a young man trying to become a novelist. His works just kind of gave me hope that there was success left out there for a man like me who's going into a category that many people don't choose. I also like Robert A. Heinlein's books. Those might be a surprise to others as well, but King Wolves of the Calla, I really like that book. I just enjoy it. His writing just kind of gives me another perspective that's aside my work, but kind of similar.
I understand. As of right now, who is your favorite author in the book and why?
Alright, at the moment, I've really been enjoying William Golding's The Lord of the Flies. The reason I'm really enjoying this is it shows that we all have monsters inside of us, that there's something more sinister and deeper inside each and every one of us, no matter who you act to be. It's just been a tale that I've been thoroughly enjoying and recommending to all my friends.
So it's kind of something that you can relate to, like the monsters and...
Most definitely. Writing in the horror genre, you can see the relations to other writers who might not be in your specific genre, but you can kind of relate to them in the ways that they use characters or use emotions in different people.
Gotcha. And what, in your opinion, is the most important element of good writing?
When younger writers come to me and ask this same question, I always tell them that you don't want to write about someone else. You want to write about yourself, and you don't want to use passive voice. You want to
get straight to the point.
Yes, so it's kind of like the curved road. You don't want to take all these curves to other places. You just kind of want to go straight there, but at a steady pace, not too fast, not too slow, not skipping any vital areas. I also always say avoid adverbs and don't worry about proper grammar, because it's not about the grammar, it's about the story. And when you start worrying about the grammar too much, you kind of miss the whole point of the story.
So that statement can kind of relate to Cormac McCarthy and his novel The Road.
Yes, that is another one of the books that I've read recently and I've enjoyed. It was, I will say, different to read, but I liked it in the sense of he wasn't too worried about the grammar, but he was worried about the story, and that way we still got the image of the story rather than just all the proper grammar.
Having to worry about it all adds another
and
stress.
And it's hard as you're writing to think about, how are people going to read this rather than how are they going to understand the story and how will they relate to the story.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them to just read it and everything's perfect. You don't want that. You want them to understand it on another level and get it and relate it to their own lives maybe and see kind of what may happen, what could happen, or just to leave an impression on them.
Because it makes sense that punctuation and unneeded words add for a lot of distraction. I get that.
That is very true. That's I feel like it veers off the road that I've talked about. You just want to stay straight on the road, and when you veer off with things like that, when you're too worried, it's not good.
So next, what do you think makes a good story?
This is another lesson that I go over with young writers who come to me and ask, how do I take my writing from better to best? And I always say, leave out the boring parts and kill your darlings. You don't want to just add on because you need length or add on because you think that you need more to the story. That's not the case here. You will notice that some of my stories aren't 80 pages long, they are shorter, but they get to the point and they tell a story. And I feel like it is extremely important to not bore the readers with extra information. And when you do that, it kind of takes away from the effectiveness of your writing. So I always just say, leave out the boring parts. If you feel like it's borderline, don't put it in. Just don't do it.
And this is kind of off topic, but what new author, like newly published author in books, is really getting your attention right now?
The Widow by Fiona Barton. Really enjoying it. I always tell my friends, if you like The Gone Girl and The Girl on the Train, that you will really enjoy this because it kind of relates to both of those. Gotcha. So I'm enjoying it right now.
That's good. So they're really on your radar.
They've been on my radar. I have so many books, but this is probably my favorite right now.
That's good. So as a horror science fiction author, what are some things that actually scare you? I mean, you have to have some insight on this.
Many will be surprised that it's not really in any of the areas that I write about. It's actually, I have trichodecaphobia, which is the fear of the number 13. It's rough being an author because a book starts at page 1 and goes all the way until whatever page you choose to stop. And I have to write on page number 13. And when I'm writing, I will never stop on a multiple or 13, or I will never stop on the page number 13. It's just, I'm scared of the number. It disturbs me on another level, and I will not stop on the multiple of it either. It scares me.
So it's nothing like physical or something you can actually grasp. It's a mental thing. Gotcha.
And that's what's kind of insane about it is I write about all these different creatures and, example, the boogeyman coming out of the closet. You'd think I'd be scared of those at night, but I feel like since I originated those, they aren't as scary for me. So I suffer from other fears, which most people don't really know about.
Okay. What was your first introduction to horror literature?
I really never had an introduction necessarily that there was a moment in time when I knew that that's what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where as a kid I always took an interest just into writing, just to write about random things. I'd write story after story. They'd be awful, but I just enjoyed writing them. And I think that's how I progressed to be the writer I am today, is because I had so much practice and trial and error that I knew what suited me and what was my best fit for writing.
So as a child, did you write specifically stuff that was scary, or was it stuff all over the place?
Most of my stuff was scary, but I did write a few other things, in different genres. Like try to have some dramatic stuff and action-packed. It just didn't work as well for me, and I feel like I could expand my thoughts when it came to horror a little more.
And now we're gonna switch topics for a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your family.
My family. So I have a wife. Her name is Tabitha. We've been married 46 years, like you said. We have 3 beautiful children. We have Naomi, Joe, and Owen. We actually do. It's kind of a family tradition. We didn't push our children to be involved into writing. It just kind of came, I guess, to them kind of like it came to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so all 5 of us, including my wife and my 3 kids, we all write. We're all authors. It's a great fit. We all have something in common, and we can kind of help each other out. And even though we're in different genres, like expand the ideas of like what we could do next. And it's really great to have something that you can do together as a family.
I'm sure it's kind of hard for your kids though, because I'm sure they're really intimidated to have you read their stuff just because of how successful you are.
Most definitely, and I feel like I try not to be as intimidating, and when it comes to that, and just be helpful, because I believe that there is a such thing as criticizing, but building up their
constructive
criticism, yeah. And I feel like they take to it very well, and I've kind of had to squeeze down the borderline of not being like, on top of them, but laid back and like, okay, here's what you can change, here's what you can improve.
Yeah,
You're
let
worried,
them come to you.
yes, like this area needs to be cut out, it's too boring, like just that kind of thing.
So our very last question of the day, is there a message in your writing that's a kind of a subtle thing for readers to catch on?
I feel as though this is kind of difficult for me to explain. There's not necessarily a message deep down within my writing, but I do write my stories to entertain people. And really my idea is when I'm writing something is this going to leave a mark on my audience? For example, when it came to the boogeyman, are people going to be checking their closets if they hear something at night? Like, is that going to be the kind of impression to leave on them? Is like that, is there something, is this made up thing that nobody believes in? Is it going to come to life possibly? And I mean, honestly, it's just writing to entertain, and I'm not saying the boogeyman's going to be in her closet, but I want to leave that impression of, oh my gosh, like what if this could happen? And that's how I kind of write when I'm going over a book and I'm like, is this worthy to go out to the public? I'm like, is this going to leave an impression on my readers? And what kind of impression is it going to leave? Is it going to just kind of blow over and they're going to be like, oh yeah, it was a good story? I don't want good. I want them to remember it for a certain reason.
Gotcha. Well, that's all we have today here on The Authors, and we hope to see you back here next week.